Mike Tyson didn't need to throw a single punch to break the internet. He merely opened an old drawer, unearthed a 20-year-old hidden treasure, and crowned the undisputed king of football. What thread connects the most terrifying boxer in history, Diego Maradona and Lionel Messi, within a single piece of fabric? The answer will leave you covered in goosebumps. Mike Tyson, the most feared man to ever step foot inside a boxing ring, has just surrendered to Lionel Messi. And he didn't do it with a devastating blow or a grand speech. He did it by retrieving a jersey from a drawer, a garment he had guarded like a priceless artifact for 2 decades. It is an Argentina shirt bearing a single handwritten inscription, "To Mike, with love," sitting just above the unmistakable signature of Diego Armando Maradona. Consider the magnitude of that for a moment. The most ferocious boxer in history, the man who decimated opponents in less than a single round, waited for Messi to rewrite World Cup history before donning this relic, capturing a photograph and sharing it with the entire world. He wrote absolutely nothing, just a single soccer ball emoji. Yet, without uttering a word, he delivered the most resonant message of the entire night. But the most extraordinary aspect is not the photograph itself. It is the history woven into that shirt. And it involves a wish Tyson confessed years ago that, should it ever come to fruition, would transform this garment into the most invaluable artifact in the history of football. Stay with me until the end, because that specific detail alters the narrative entirely. If you appreciate the beautiful game narrated with the reverence it deserves, subscribe and activate notifications, because this story will give you chills. To truly comprehend the profound weight of this tribute, one must first understand the man who delivered it. Mike Tyson is not merely a passing celebrity casually tapping a heart icon from his living room. We are speaking of the youngest heavyweight world champion in the history of the sport. A young prodigy who, at barely 20 years of age, had the entire globe trembling at the mere mention of his name. For a defining era, he was unequivocally the most intimidating human being in sports, a force of nature who dispatched challengers in a matter of seconds and who appeared fundamentally invincible. Then came the descent, a fall as precipitous and brutal as his meteoric rise. The excesses, the public scandals, the imprisonment, the evaporation of a colossal fortune, and his internal demons claiming victory round after round outside the ropes. And yet, defying all conceivable odds, the man rose again. Past the age of 50, he laced up his gloves once more and stepped into the ring before an audience of millions, demonstrating to the world that his saga still held unwritten chapters. Therefore, when an individual of that caliber, a man who has embodied legendary status, plummeted into the abyss and engineered his own resurrection, bows with such profound humility before a footballer, it commands our utmost attention. Tyson understands, perhaps better than anyone else on earth, the agonizing toll required to reach the pinnacle, and the excruciating pain of watching the world write you off as finished. To contextualize why he reacted on that specific night and not any other, we must first return to the pitch. The date was June 16, 2026 at Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City, marking Argentina's inaugural match of the World Cup. Awaiting them was Algeria, and to imbue the scene with even richer narrative layers, the opposition's goal was guarded by Luka Zidane, the son of the legendary Zinedine. Messi entered this fixture at 38 years of age, a juncture where the vast majority of professionals have long since retired or are merely coasting, conserving whatever minimal energy remains in their legs. The maestro from Rosario executed the exact opposite. He orchestrated the most immaculate performance one could possibly envision, netting all 3 goals in a commanding 3-0 victory. It was his first ever hat trick in the illustrious history of his World Cup appearances. At 38 years and 357 days old, he simultaneously became the oldest player to achieve a hat trick in the tournament, shattering a milestone that, until that very morning, had belonged to Cristiano Ronaldo. It is imperative to pause and examine those 3 goals, as each was a distinct masterpiece. The first arrived at the quarter-hour mark, a clinical, blistering left-footed strike from long range that nestled flawlessly into the top corner, a shot of such sheer authority that it defied any response. For the second, the fundamental laws of the penalty area dictated the outcome. Alexis McAllister unleashed a strike from distance. The goalkeeper failed to secure the ball, spilling the rebound. Arriving with absolute precision was the captain, converting the opportunity on his first touch with the predatory instinct of a true opportunist, this time utilizing his right foot. There was no intricate flair to this finish. It was pure anticipation, instinct, and the mastery of positioning. The third, however, was an exhibit of absolute artistry, a delicate, curled finish from the edge of the penalty area, calculated to the exact millimeter, gently kissing the inside of the post. 3 goals, executed in 3 entirely different fashions, yet bearing a single, unifying signature, that of the greatest to ever play the game. The statistical gravity of that night induces sheer vertigo. With that hat trick, Messi elevated his World Cup tally to 16 goals, equaling Miroslav Klose as the all-time leading scorer in the history of the tournament. He equaled the record. He did not yet surpass it. He positioned himself shoulder to shoulder with the German icon at the absolute pinnacle, requiring just one more goal to stand entirely alone at the summit. On that exact same day, he also cemented his legacy as the first footballer in history to compete in 6 different World Cups, concurrently marking his 200th appearance in the iconic Argentine jersey. As if this litany of achievements were insufficient, the hat trick occurred exactly 20 years, to the very day, after he scored his inaugural World Cup goal in 2006. Absorb that reality for a moment, because remarkably few human endeavors endure 2 consecutive decades of relentless competition at the absolute apex of their field. When he was ultimately substituted in the closing moments, the entire stadium rose to its feet in a deafening ovation. There is a poignant contrast here that must not be ignored, for destiny possesses a distinct sense of irony. During that exact same international window, his perpetual rival, Cristiano Ronaldo, also reached the monumental milestone of 6 World Cups, representing Portugal in a 1-1 draw against the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The defining difference lies in the narrative arc. The Portuguese legend arrived at this historic marker quietly, almost imperceptibly, while Messi scaled the exact same summit in a crescendo of brilliance, delivering a historic hat trick and bringing the footballing world to its knees. 2 distinct journeys toward the identical record, unfolding on 2 nights that could not have been more diametrically opposed. It is equally crucial to analyze what these statistics conceal beneath the surface. Messi did not merely equal Klose's record, he scored in his 5th separate World Cup edition and extended his streak to 5 consecutive World Cup matches with a goal. Translated into human terms, this signifies that he has spent 2 decades dismantling entirely new generations of adversaries, players who were born, matured, and debuted, while he remained immovable, fundamentally unyielding on his throne. This is precisely why the reverence of a figure like Mike Tyson carries such profound resonance. Iron Mike was discarded and declared finished 1,000 times over. The sporting world buried him prematurely on multiple occasions, and yet he invariably orchestrated a return. When a man who clawed his way back from the darkest abyss stands to applaud a contemporary who vehemently refuses to succumb to time, he is not merely celebrating a goal, he is acknowledging a kindred spirit. However, there was a deeply personal detail from that evening that requires the utmost sensitivity, for this was no ordinary celebration. Following his opening goal, the broadcast cameras captured Messi in tears, and it was noticeably devoid of his customary jubilance. In the days leading up to the match, reports had circulated within the Argentine press indicating that his father, Jorge Messi, was navigating a severe health crisis, prompting the family to request privacy and respect. Leo offered no public explanations for those tears, and the media respectfully refrained from demanding them. One only needed to look into his eyes for a fraction of a second to comprehend that, on that particular night, he was bearing a burden vastly heavier than the crest on his chest, and despite that immense psychological weight, he delivered 3 goals. Football, in its purest essence, often serves as exactly that: a sanctuary where one can release the emotions that language fails to articulate. When the referee signaled the end of the match, the global sporting community offered its submission. Erling Haaland, who had marked his own World Cup debut with a brace earlier that day, posted a photograph with a simple caption, "Messi is crazy," accompanied by a crown emoji, instinctively acknowledging the sovereign without requiring justification. Ronaldo Nazário, the transcendent Brazilian phenomenon, publicly implored the world to unequivocally accept that Messi is the greatest player in history. Even his manager, Lionel Scaloni, firmly stated that his legacy is eternal, and that it is highly improbable anyone will ever eclipse his achievements. Yet, amidst this overwhelming deluge of televised and broadcasted adulation, one reaction required no verbal articulation to command the global narrative. It was precisely the response that swept across social media with the greatest velocity: that of a legendary boxer stationed in a quiet corner of the United States, wearing a jersey faded by the passage of time, carrying a backstory known in its entirety by very few. The moment Tyson released that photograph, it took the Argentine faithful less than a second to identify the garment. This was not a commercially manufactured replica, nor was it the standard promotional apparel distributed in bulk to celebrities. It was the authentic, primary kit of the Argentine national team, the specific model utilized during the 2006 World Cup, famously worn with the number 10 by Juan Román Riquelme, and emblazoned across the fabric, penned in the distinctive handwriting of Diego himself, was an immaculate dedication. To Mike, with love, anchored by the unmistakable signature of the iconic number 10. This singular object masterfully intertwines within a mere weave of cotton the legacy of Maradona, the heritage of the national team, and now, through powerful symbolism, the triumph of Messi. 3 towering pillars of Argentine football captivating the world's attention through one cohesive image. Pause and reflect on those specific words, for there is a profound depth that many fail to recognize. Maradona was not an individual who dispensed his affection casually upon a canvas. Diego was the embodiment of raw passion and overflowing emotion, but he was simultaneously defined by deep-seated skepticism and unhealed wounds inflicted by the world. The deliberate choice to write "with love" to this hardened, life-tested American was neither a trivial detail nor a superficial courtesy. It was his method of communicating to a man who had survived comparable trauma that he recognized him as an equal, a brother forged in a different arena who had waged identical internal wars. Tyson understood this sentiment with absolute clarity. That is the fundamental reason he preserved that jersey for 2 decades, treating it as the most sacred relic in his private collection. To trace the origins of such a remarkable artifact, we must journey back to the year 2005. During that era, Maradona hosted a wildly successful television program entitled La Noche del Diez. On one particular evening, inside a packed Luna Park arena with thousands serving as live witnesses, his distinguished guest was none other than Mike Tyson. Visualize the sheer gravity of that encounter. 2 of the most formidable and paradoxically most beloved figures on the planet seated opposite one another, sharing laughter like lifelong companions. They were 2 cultural icons forged in the crucible of absolute poverty. Both were young boys from marginalized neighborhoods who had violently ascended to the absolute zenith of global recognition, subsequently paying an exorbitant toll for that unprecedented fame. Their dialogue did not revolve around championship belts or knockout punches. It centered on 2 fractured souls who instantly recognized their own reflection in the other. As the evening concluded, Diego presented his guest with the inscribed jersey. Tyson accepted it not as a mere garment, but as a priceless championship trophy, one that the entirety of his vast fortune could never acquire. The connection between these two titans was never a fabricated public relations strategy. Iron Mike consistently felt a profound brotherhood with Diego because of the reality they shared a man who, much like himself, had grazed the heavens and plummeted into hell in almost the exact same breath. Consequently, that jersey transcended the status of a television souvenir. It was tangible, undeniable proof that the most revered figure in football history had looked him directly in the eyes and called him a friend. It is widely reported that his pride in this garment was so immense that he would wear it openly in public, walking the streets draped in it as if it were an armor of invincibility. Should any skepticism remain regarding the depth of Tyson's loyalty to the iconic blue and white stripes, be assured that this recent tribute was not his first time publicly defending Messi. Cast your memory back to the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. Following Argentina's crucial victory over Mexico, a deeply misrepresented video surfaced, falsely suggesting that Messi was deliberately kicking a Mexican jersey on the locker room floor. In reality, it was merely discarded kit resting on the ground, a standard occurrence in every professional dressing room globally. Nonetheless, a fierce controversy erupted, prompting Canelo Alvarez, fueled by nationalistic pride, to publicly issue threats against the Argentine captain. It was at this precise juncture that Iron Mike intervened. In an uncompromising, razor-sharp interview, the former heavyweight champion issued a stern warning. If Canelo dared to lay a single finger on Lionel Messi, Tyson would be forced to step out of retirement and re-enter the ring. Shortly thereafter, the Mexican champion reassessed the situation, retracted his statements, and issued a formal public apology to the man from Rosario. On two distinct occasions, spanning two separate World Cups, the most lethal man in boxing history positioned himself firmly as the vanguard for Messi, without anyone ever soliciting his protection. When these fragmented historical pieces are assembled, the photograph from this week transcends a mere spontaneous gesture. It evolves into a narrative of monumental proportions. We are observing a legendary fighter who has spent nearly 20 years fiercely defending and honoring the Argentine national team. Now, bearing witness to the most historically significant performance of Messi's illustrious career, he determined that the ultimate form of applause was to retrieve the jersey of his original Argentine idol. Do you comprehend the staggering symbolic weight of this decision? Tyson did not purchase a pristine, modern jersey with Messi freshly printed across the shoulders. He actively sought out Maradona's jersey. In doing so, he seamlessly integrated the two most monumental figures in Argentine football history into a single, unified frame on a night of triumph. It was as if Diego himself, from whatever ethereal realm he now inhabits, was standing alongside him, applauding his rightful heir. This is perhaps the most profoundly beautiful aspect of this entire phenomenon. For years, the footballing public has been subjected to a fabricated dichotomy, forced into a corner as if presented with an inescapable ultimatum: Maradona or Messi. It was a narrative that falsely implied that admiring one inherently required the betrayal of the other. This illogical division fractured families, dominated endless debates, and even divided locker rooms. Yet, it required an American, a man who was neither born in Buenos Aires nor raised on the mythos of the 1986 World Cup, to remind the world of a truth as fundamental as it is frequently forgotten: there is absolutely no need to choose. That identical jersey proudly bears the signature of Diego while simultaneously celebrating the monumental achievements of Leo. The legacies of both men reside comfortably within the very same fabric, bound by an identical, unconditional reverence. Maradona transitioned into eternity in 2020, but his signature remains vibrantly alive, now symbolically embracing the extraordinary feats of the man who arrived later to carry the eternal flame. Predictably, the image ignited the digital landscape within minutes. The Argentine diaspora shared it millions of times, profoundly moved by the sight of a sporting deity from a different discipline, a different nation, and a different era, offering his absolute surrender to their national hero. Their emotional response was entirely justified, for that single photograph encapsulated everything an Argentine holds sacred: the eternal number 10, the reigning captain, and the sacred colors that bind them both. Rarely has an image utterly devoid of text, accompanied only by a digital icon, managed to articulate such a complex, sweeping narrative. Tyson actively chose silence, and that deliberate silence resonated with a deafening volume that no orchestrated press release could ever replicate. There is an additional layer of nuance that enriches this story even further. This particular World Cup is being contested on American soil, in Mike Tyson's own backyard. Convention would dictate that an American-born icon during a tournament of this unprecedented scale hosted in his homeland would vigorously champion his domestic colors. Iron Mike, conversely, exhibited not a single fraction of doubt. Through one isolated image, he unequivocally declared his allegiances for the duration of the tournament. His loyalty did not lie with the host nation. It belonged to the celestial blue and white. It belonged to the jersey that Maradona consecrated with his signature, which is now spiritually worn by the man shattering athletic boundaries at the age of 38. Rarely has a declaration of allegiance to a foreign nation been delivered with such devastating impact without the expenditure of a single spoken word. However, the most crucial detail remains unmentioned: the revelation I promised at the outset, the nuance that the majority of the world has forgotten, which fundamentally crystallizes the entire narrative. Sometime in the past, while discussing this exact garment, Tyson casually revealed a desire that, at the time, failed to generate headlines. He confessed that if destiny ever granted him the opportunity to stand face-to-face with Lionel Messi, he would respectfully request that Messi sign that very same jersey, the garment already bearing the indelible immortal autograph of Diego Maradona. Have you fully conceptualized the magnitude of what that would represent? A solitary jersey, a single canvas of fabric, concurrently bearing the signatures of the two most transcendent footballers that Argentina has ever gifted to the world. The architect of the hand of God and the conqueror of Qatar, immortalized together on the same tapestry, permanently united by the unwavering admiration of a heavyweight boxer who reveres them equally. There exists no sporting artifact in any museum, private collection, or elite auction house on the planet capable of rivaling the historical gravity of such an item. It would unquestionably become the most deeply coveted, universally revered relic in the entire history of global sports. Pause to consider the sheer historical weight of this hypothetical masterpiece. A jersey that has weathered 2 turbulent decades, survived the tragic passing of Diego, traveled from the roaring crowds of Luna Park into the private sanctuary of a boxing champion, and now requires only one final sweeping stroke of ink to complete an absolutely flawless circle of destiny. Elite collectors would eagerly part with incomprehensible fortunes for artifacts possessing a fraction of its significance. Yet, the true, immeasurable value of this garment would not be quantified in currency. Its worth lies in what it intrinsically represents: the definitive physical proof that the two absolute apexes of Argentine football, separated by an entire generation, can coexist in perfect harmony within the same space, brought together by an outsider who honors them without demanding anything in return. If you close your eyes for just a moment, the cinematic quality of the scene playing out behind closed doors is palpable. A formidable giant of a man, possessing hands renowned for their destructive power, gently opening a drawer. He carefully extracts a meticulously folded jersey, spreads it across his bed, and instantly connects with the familiar handwriting of a departed friend. He slowly pulls the garment over his shoulders, gazes into the mirror, and concludes that this, and absolutely nothing else, was the only appropriate method to convey his gratitude for the masterpiece he had just witnessed on the television screen. The world required no further context to decipher the message. No exhaustive essays, no heavily negotiated exclusive interviews, no highly produced corporate statements. Just a raw photograph, a solitary emoji, and 20 years of profound overlapping history crystallized into one fleeting instant. Therefore, the next time this photograph surfaces on your digital feed, do not dismiss it as merely another reactionary post amidst the digital avalanche triggered by Messi's brilliance. Beneath the unassuming exterior of that soccer ball emoji beats the pulse of a two-decade saga. A brotherhood forged under the blinding studio lights, a fallen deity whose ink remains unyielding against the passage of time, and a lingering, poignant wish that Lionel Messi himself possesses the power to fulfill with a single signature. Imagine, for a fleeting moment, the day this convergence finally occurs. Tyson and Messi, standing face to face as that historic jersey is respectfully presented to receive its second, finalizing inscription. The very day that transpires, the entire sporting world will undoubtedly grind to a halt to bear witness. And while this cinematic dream awaits its manifestation, Messi continues his relentless, unstoppable march toward sporting immortality. He requires merely one final goal to stand utterly alone at the zenith of World Cup goal scorers, eclipsing even the legendary Miroslav Klose. One single goal, and he possesses an entire tournament to secure it. Who is to say that, upon achieving this ultimate milestone, Iron Mike will not emerge once more from the quiet shadows of the United States, draped in his sacred jersey, to offer a silent, standing ovation to the man who consistently defies the relentless march of time. Now, I turn the conversation to you. Can you envision the sheer magnitude of that jersey with both signatures, Diego and Leo, resting side by side for all of eternity? And do you genuinely believe that the universe will align to bring Tyson and Messi together so this final wish can be realized? Share your perspectives in the comments, as the depth of your insights is always fascinating. If this narrative resonated with you and left you with goosebumps, please leave a like, share this video with the friend who remains trapped in the illusion that one must choose between Diego and Leo, and ensure you are subscribed so you never miss another deep dive into sporting history. Because ultimately, it was a retired fighter in a vintage shirt, armed with an immense heart, who delivered the ultimate lesson. True, transcendent greatness is neither inherited nor merely replaced. It is authored and reauthored, time and time again, upon the exact same fabric.